Well, good evening, everybody, on this wonderful Friday evening. I am so grateful that each and every one of you are here. Karen and I are excited that you're here as well. And as you can tell, I have a really, really special guest with us tonight. And boy, this is going to be one show for you. Put your seatbelt on, and let me introduce John here for a moment here. John was a street cop, a CSI, a homicide investigator, a hostage negotiator, and a detective sergeant in one of the most violent cities in Southern California. Our old city, because we were partners for quite some time, Oceanside, California, and where our motto was, where the debris meets the sea. He is also the author of Service with a Sneer, 6 mystery novels, and a book about ghost phenomena. John lives at the base of the Blue Ridge Mountains in rural Virginia, and he has a spoiled golden retriever named Andy and 2 cats. And you can find John on Facebook, and he's got a new book out. If you have not seen this book, it'll be down in the link. It's called Beach Blanket Bedlam.
And let me tell you, because I read it, it's awesome. Yeah. If you want true crime, real life police stories with all the salt and vinegar you can handle, it's fantastic.
It's hysterical.
Pick it up, put it on your reading list.
As they used to say, that man's going historical. Mm-hmm. So make sure you pick up a copy of John's book. And we want to welcome John to the interview room. John, welcome.
Well, it's really a pleasure to be really back here again. And as we take a stroll down memory alley briefly before we get to the meat of the discussion tonight, but yes, Chris and I worked a number of cases together, and you're very fortunate to have Chris covering this information for you, because you can take it from somebody who worked with him, first-rate investigator. And they're pretty few and far between.
I haven't paid him for this either, everybody. I've not paid him.
We can get you can get me on Venmo later. But no, I mean, the number of cases we've worked together, and so we bring a different view into this. I'm not an academic, but I've investigated over 100 murders, been to, Lord, going to be a minimum of 1,000 death scenes. And so I can tell you what it's like from the street side. And when I see things that I go, that's odd. So it's a delight to be here. And at some point, you may see spoiled golden retriever Andy show up in Beach Blanket Bedlams, available on Amazon. And if you're a snowflake or a snag, which is a sensitive new age guy or gal, probably you don't want this book, because I don't pull any punches. I talk about back in the day when we had no tasers. Basically, non-lethal meant nightstick or fists. And I cover some murder scenes I went to, and I'm at work writing the next book in the series about my years in homicide, and it's called Bring Out Your Dead. So
It's going to be that's going to be a great book. And so
Oh,
you
they're great
guys
fun.
know why Karen and I love John. We've known him for many, many, many years, and we've also watched him work, and he's a phenomenal supervisor, and then simultaneously, obviously, as a supervisor over, a sergeant who's run homicide scenes. I could have thought of nobody better this evening than to have John here to go over this information. Karen?
Yeah, I was thinking about this on my walk today of when I first met you, John, and I was trying to remember the murder. They all blend together, but it was definitely, you were sergeant, and it could have been a Sunday night, quiet, and, I got called out for murder, and none of my colleagues showed up. So that's why I think it was probably a Sunday night. And I had met you, and you were just professional and sharp and smart. And then I just wanted to talk to you more because you were such an interesting guy, and you were smoking your pipe. Because I think at this point you were waiting for the ME to show up. Can't remember which murder this was, but anyway, that was my first introduction to Sergeant Lamb as a reporter. And I was like, man, why can't every sergeant be like him?
I have a vague recollection of that, Karen, and I think it was a murder out in the eastern part of the city, and a brother had stabbed a brother to death over an argument about what they were going to watch on television. And but you got to a point we went to so many of them, and
Yes.
Because we got called out for all death scenes. So if it was a drowning, we got called out. If it was a suicide, we got called out. If it was an autoerotic accidental death, we got called out. So we saw the full tapestry of death. And I always felt it was a privilege to be working these cases. I wanted to be a homicide detective from the first time I saw Jack Webb on Dragnet in 1967, investigating a murder. And it's a privilege to work those cases because there are none bigger. So
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. We learned a lot, didn't we?
We did. If you learn continuously, if you are not learning continuously, to borrow a phrase from Lieutenant Bill Donnelly, you need to go get a job at Baskin Robbins. You are learning all the time.
Yeah, and so tonight, what we want to cover as a team here, we want to objectively take a look at what's going on with this car. And it's almost this idea as if, there's a lot of curly shuffle going on here. Well, everybody else tonight, I'm sure they're going to concentrate on the new body camera video that's dropped. We're not going to do that just yet. We're going to let the dust settle. I want to soak that in a little bit more. And, Karen and I, we're not, we don't run right to the water spigot when it's on full blast. We like to let the dust settle and then kind of take a look at it objectively. And that's why guys like John, myself, Karen, when she was a journalist, she knew she couldn't get anything out of us, but we were the type of people, not me because I was married to her, but the type of people that we came from a different way of doing things. And so there's some great things that happened at, in our time. There's some great things that happened in this particular case and with some of this body camera drop. But again, we do not want to say that we're not going to be honest 1,000%. Officers make mistakes. And we came from a day where you say, if I made a mistake, John would have walked up to me and probably said, you screwed up, but what are we going to do? How are we going to get around it? I.e., what are you going to do to make it right? And I think we're living in a day, and by the way, this is a great, this is Cheryl. This is a great crime scene investigator. She just joined us tonight. Did you tell?
She's awesome. Hey, Cheryl.
I put
She's
it,
so
I
good.
let people know in my Facebook community, and Cheryl, we'll just tell everybody right now, she was an amazing CSI.
Yes, most definitely. We got to get her on the show, John. We got to get her in here.
Actually, that's a really great idea.
You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
She's got a great sense of humor, and she put up with us. And that's what counts. So,
and she's the OG CSI.
Cheryl's OG.
Long before the TV show.
Oh,
started.
Yeah.
Long before.
Among the very first of when they civilianized it.
Exactly.
The very first CSIs, well, they were called UCIs, were Jim Sandifer, Tom Lundgren, and myself. When we went to the CSI school at Cal State Long Beach. But when they went to the civilians, she was the first.
Yep. She back in the day. So she's seen 1,000 things. Okay. So what we're going to talk about tonight, again, I don't want you thinking that we don't back the blue. That's not it at all. That's 1,000% incorrect.
Chris, do you mind if I jump in just for a sec?
Go ahead, Karen. Yeah.
Okay. The reason that we are talking about the white Elantra again tonight is that we think it's really, really important. And here's why. Maybe you haven't seen our other videos where the last two, for sure last Sundays that we did, where Chris really goes in depth, and we're trying to put the pieces together of when WSU identified BK's white Elantra and why there appears to be some inconsistencies or some reason that there was 19 days lapsed before officials officially said he's our guy. And so in doing so, we're looking at the documents. We're going back to the affidavit that was released, almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago already, plus. And we're just trying to kind of connect the dots here because it really doesn't add up. Something is not right. There's a disconnect between what we're seeing on paper in terms of dates, times, and when they identified that white Elantra versus what we're hearing from WSU police chief, who's out on the media circuit now. And so we feel like this is really an important piece of the whole murder investigation. And that's why we're spending time on it.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And we only ask one thing is just please subscribe and then send this out through all your social media, but hit that thumbs up. And we will also want to thank our mods in here, Mimi J2, Laura, Miss Sophia, Teresa M, and Maui Girl. Thank you, ladies, for always keeping us out of trouble. Okay, so I put together a little video. Go figure. Okay, and while everybody's been on the circuit, remember it was here the very first time you heard me say and others, hey, that picture is Ted Bundy and Bryan Kohberger is doing cosplay there. It just doesn't, blah, blah, blah. Dr. Gary said it, and he's like, that's Ted Bundy playing cosplay. And we've been saying from day one, what is the model that this guy, who's he trying to be like? Okay. Well, now it's coming to the surface after the Dateline thing and all this other stuff that apparently Ted Bundy is who he was playing. However, we have a word game going, and that word game is with the administrators. And the administrators, well, John, tell us what lieutenant, probably captains and above, what do they do?
Their primary mission is to figure out ways to get to the next rank. They are like, help me with a character from Lord of the Rings, the Schmeagol, Golem. They would bite your finger off to get collar brass. This is what they're focused on. Most of them fast-tracked into administration. They have, well, for instance, a lieutenant I worked for, who will remain nameless, had never investigated a felony crime as a detective in his career. And yet they feel that because they are the bosses, they need to weigh in and control investigations, even if basically they need seeing eye dogs to maneuver through an investigation. But because they've got the collar brass, they know what's best
to maneuver. Okay, so let's listen to this piece of the puzzle so far. So what we know now, there's a ton of information out, but before all that information started to hit, the investigators, i.e. the brass, went to the stage. Let's hear what they say.
You collected numerous devices, but you collected an active phone that he had. What did you find on that phone?
Well, the phone, it just provided us and matched up everything that we mostly already had. You know, we'd already conducted search warrants and had a lot of his activity, a lot of his phone usage. When we actually had the physical phone and we were able to do the extract of it, you know, we didn't gain a lot from it. You know, we know that he was clearing a lot of his devices and wiping things from them. We know that he used VPNs. So, but we also did find screenshots and pictures of news coverage.
On his Android device, we used Celebrite Physical Analyzer software to just parse the information.
What else did you uncover in your digital investigation, Heather?
Lots of browser searching for serial killers, as I mentioned with you previously, an obsession with himself. So researching serial killers and then immediately taking selfies to replicate what he had read. So that picture of him in the black hoodie was taken after researching Ted Bundy. And in that research, it was Ted Bundy in that black hoodie, and he replicated the photo.
There's a lot. Okay, so did I miss something on the first question, Karen?
Well, Lieutenant Gilbertson with Idaho State Police told CNN, as we just saw, quote, "We didn't gain a lot from it," meaning what was on his cell phone. That was his official, line. But then, right, last week we hear from Heather Barnett and her husband, who worked the Celebrate data, and she's talking about a treasure trove of information, right? Serial killers, the stuff about him. And so who are we to believe? Are we to believe the official lieutenant from ISP in his interview, or do we believe the people from Celebrate? It's very confusing.
John, what did you think of that word salad?
It was the standard delivery that I have listened to in one form or another for 4 decades from people who are really, they're not in the business of actually sharing information. And so there was really nothing said other than, yeah, we found some stuff, but it really didn't make an impact on the investigation, which, knowing what can be retrieved from cell phones, I find kind of a shocking comment.
Well, yeah, and the fact that he wouldn't tell the public, you know what? That's a great question. Now that the homicide is over and the guy's in prison. You know what we did find on his phone? We found photographs of Ted Bundy, him cosplaying Ted Bundy, and all this other stuff, yada, yada, yada. But what do we get? We get word salad about, well, he was following the investigation. And the other guy next to him was from Moscow PD, and he sounded a little confused, but let's hear what he says about things when he's asked by the national news.
A lot of speculation in this case about the cross-country drive. Mm-hmm. Was he identified as a possible before he left town?
No, we did not have his name.
And he was not even on the radar as a likely suspect when his father came here and drove away with him.
That's correct. Obviously, if we'd have had that information, he would not have been able to leave the area. We had lots of different leads, and we tracked down each and every one of them. It was painstaking, and until we got to the end of this, I can't remember exactly how many people that we looked at, but we did hundreds of interviews with so many different people, and each one of those, it was almost weekly, if not almost daily. We would have a new lead. Our investigators dug right into it and dispelled that rather quickly.
Would you have gotten probable cause to arrest him without the DNA?
I believe so.
Based on what?
Our investigators were very confident that based off of where we were going with the vehicle and the information that we gathered, we would have got there.
The hair on the back of my neck stood up. It was chilling to hear that he was a suspect, and for one, that he had been living on WSU campus.
I talked one-on-one with Chief Gary Jenkins about his interaction with Kohberger and when he found out he was the suspect in the King Road murders.
Okay, so that's our focus tonight. When was he the suspect in the King Road murders? Because we just heard from the chief of police at Moscow PD. We've got folks that believe that just because somebody has photographs on their phone and they're criminology students, that's what the cops were saying. I don't think criminology students cosplay Ted Bundy or Ed Kemper or, Danny Rollins or anybody like that. But you may have different information. I've been in this business a couple of weekends now, and I've yet to find even a cop with those types of photographs on their phones. They don't exist. So let's dive into the car, seeing how that was a key piece of information. And we know from the affidavits, hey, when did this car become relevant? So that was our question. And so what we did is we reached out to Washington State University and said, hey, can you help us? Here's a FOIA, and we would like to get information about this car. And by golly, they responded. Karen, what did they say?
Well, they said, quote, we hope to complete our review of records responsive to your public records request and respond to you by April 16th, 2026. However, more time may be necessary. Now, mind you, right after BK was sentenced, we filed our FOIA request. We did several of them. So that was actually late July. So they were telling me that it was going to be April of the following year before they could release any of the public records that we were asking for. So
we figured, tonight then we would show you essentially what your policy says. Your policy says that, look, you guys got to maintain this stuff, and then you got to drop it out into the public in a very reasonable amount of time. And we just don't understand why April 2026 is when the public will get these documents from Washington State University. I'm confused because the affidavit says, hey, we knew about this car on November 25th, approximately 12 days later from the homicide. Okay, so let's start here. John, we only see one date here, right?
That's correct.
So let's go through homicide 101. It looks like they were reviewing observation. If I turn this into you as my supervisor and say, here you go, Sarge, I was looking at suspect vehicle 1. What's the first question you're going to ask me?
My first question is, where's your foundation for this to be suspect vehicle number 1? My next question would be, it says after reviewing, but you haven't told me on what date and at what time that you were reviewing these numerous observations of the suspect vehicle. This is an affidavit, and if you've never done an affidavit, which both Chris and I have typed up a lot of affidavits, this impresses me as being vague. And had you turned that into me, I'd say we need to understand when you reviewed this and at what point were you placed on the trail of looking at these observations? So give me times and dates. That's pivotal for something like this, particularly a quadruple murder.
Because defense will do what with that, John?
Well, have a field day. Maybe you'll hear a file in the background as the guy's sharpening his teeth. This is at any point in a major case, if you leave any area that can be interpreted or misinterpreted, a defense attorney is going to attempt to drive through it like he's got a tank. So I'm puzzled as to why I don't see a date and time and some more supporting, basically supportive framework as to what these observations, where did they occur?
Right. And so this, just for the record for everybody, okay, this is the affidavit to get into Bryan Kohberger, Brent Payne, the investigating officer, right? Okay. He's got down here, I got to go back up to page 9, sorry. Okay. What is very obvious is dates are missing. Because now when we go over to the affidavit to get into Bryan Kohberger's house at WSU, this guy's also citing videos, okay? And he's also citing video cameras on the early morning hours of November 13th, which is correct. Good for him, okay? He's talking about the videos. He's talking about having conversations with MPD officers, ISP detectives, FBI agents. A review of camera footage indicated that a white sedan, hereafter suspect 1, was traveling westbound in the 700 block of Indian Hills, Moscow. Doesn't give a date. He just says apparently there was a vehicle, so we're to assume it's the date of the incident. Okay. A review of the footage, blah, blah, blah. He goes on showing the vehicle. Okay. Suspect 1, the vehicle 1. He breaks it down here, where it's headed, yada, yada. And then law enforcement officers provided video footage of suspect 1 to a forensic examiners, FBI guys. And this FBI guy had 35 years worth of experience. And after numerous observations of suspect vehicle 1, he actually has the exact same language as Payne. Says, you know what, could be a 2011, 2013. Upon further review, they indicate it could also be a 2011, 2016. All right. As a result, investigators have been reviewing information on persons in possession of a vehicle that is a 2011 to 2016 white Hyundai Elantra. All right. Why is this important? Because Officer Friendless, they go and they start looking for surveillance of this white Elantra. And he's not thinking about the year. He's looking for a white Elantra. Go ahead, John.
Exactly. And this is when a BOL comes out for any kind of crime, but particularly a major crime, and it doesn't get much bigger than a quadruple homicide. And you're hearing we're looking for a white sedan. Well, maybe light gray, because we don't know what sort of lighting is involved. You would stop basically anything that fit the criteria. I'm reminded, Chris, of the suspect vehicle that you picked out after that murder at the Mexican restaurant in the San Luis Rey Valley.
Oh, in the valley.
It wasn't, the vehicle was not exactly as described, but we kind of expand parameters, and what do you know? It was the vehicle on that murder.
So, and it's important, right, John, because you got the make, the model, the color, but okay, so you have the wrong year, right?
That's negligible.
There's Andy behind you, by the way.
Oh, is Andy behind me?
Yeah.
Hello, Andy. You gonna come here? Come here.
No, it's his cat.
Oh, it's your cat.
Oh, that's Andy right here.
Oh, I couldn't see. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, Andy.
Up a little bit so we can see.
Oh, what a sweetie.
He says I'm neglected.
Okay, so on November 25th, Moscow PD puts a Bolo out, be on the lookout for a white Elantra in the area. On November 29th, 4 days later, at approximately 12:28, Washington State University police officer Daniel Tiengo, who, by the way, is now with Pullman PD, queried a white Elantra registered at WSU. So in the affidavit, they say Moscow PD put a Bolo out. Okay, well, let's hear what the chief
for an internship at the Pullman Police Department in Pullman, Washington. Kohberger was going to work on his PhD at Washington State University in Pullman, so the internship at the PD seemed like a perfect fit. The job was a graduate research assistantship for public safety, and Kohberger wanted to do research and help collect and analyze data to make suburban and rural police departments operate more efficiently. In his 3-page essay, Kohberger wrote about the dearth of data that is available to be analyzed. Now, we knew about Kohberger applying for this position in the past. It was referenced briefly in the probable cause affidavit. Kohberger wrote, "In order for a criminal justice agency to be adaptable to the complex social environment that shapes any single interaction between police and citizens, an in-depth look at the unused data is of extreme significance." Now, Kohberger included a copy of his resume detailing his educational history. He listed his research interests as the cause of violent crime, emotion and decision-making, legal and forensic psychology, and cognitive psychology.
You know, crime, Anjanette here does a fabulous job of laying this just succinctly. Okay. So now we know that at the same time, shortly thereafter, he applies and, gets into WSU and he's in the program. Well, we also now know there's a tremendous amount of information coming downstream from women saying that this guy is misogynistic, et cetera. Karen, what do you think?
The complaints start stacking up immediately, we now know, including one, a professor in the criminology department that I identified Kohberger as a predator, that's her word, and said if we give this guy a PhD, he is going to sexually harass future students. She was so concerned. Also, there was a female student in that criminology program who came to her office. She comes in crying one day. She had just left some interaction with Kohberger. He was creepy. He was misogynistic. And it rose to the level of concern that it made the ISP report, the reports that we now know. So as he's starting the program and he's a TA for the PhD program, the complaints start stacking up. And we know that less than 6 months before, back in April, he had a Zoom call with Chief Jenkins for that job that he didn't get.
Yeah, so John and I have been thinking, whoa, wait a minute. This car must be really important because it's been seen at a homicide scene. And okay, yeah, they got the year wrong, but I think we can all agree, and John, I know you and I agree. So what? You know, you mean to tell me if I called you up, John, and this is your caper, and said, hey, we got a white Elantra over here 9 miles away from the homicide scene, different year, but it's the right color. It's got out-of-state plates on it, and it's got a dude by the name of Bryan Kohberger. And in fact, in the affidavit, they thought it was important to put that in there. They said on November 29th at approximately 12:28 a.m., that would be morning watch. Okay. 12:28 a.m. Night, morning is usually what, 11 to 7, John? Used to be?
These guys work 312s anymore.
Okay. So, but
shift.
Yeah, we can agree that it's morning watch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so they find this officer, Tiengo, by the way, deserves a commendation. Queried white Elantra registered at WSU. As a result of his query, he gets a hit on Lincoln Frank Zebra 8649, and it comes back to one Bryan Kohberger, who actually has an address. Well, guess what? That same day at 12:58 a.m., what is that, 30 minutes later, according to the affidavit?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Officer Curtis Whitman was looking for a white Hyundai Elantra as well. And he located a 2015 white Elantra at the same address that he was told about, or at least they probably shared on car to car. Okay. Right, John?
Well, the other thing I'm reading between the lines here is that this guy, Kohberger, may have actually, the cops may have known about him.
Okay.
So what are the odds that within 30 minutes, two officers are going to be seeing this vehicle? It's either that there's nobody out there driving, or, and you remember the way it was, Chris, we knew guys that you'd say, that guy's going to do something.
Well, not only that, you're right. But so they find the car, and now they decide, this officer decides, Whitman, I'm going to run his DL. I'm going to see who's connected to the car. So he's going to ask dispatch for a 29 around the world on this guy. He's going to get a DL. And what does he find out? By golly, this guy matches the description, including the bushy eyebrows. The bushy eyebrows. Holy cow. And look, Kohberger's physical description is consistent with the description of the male Dylan saw inside the King Road residence November 13th. All right? Now, we're to believe this is the 29th of November because it's on the affidavit. Okay? let's hear what the chief says. Okay, go, Karen.
What?
Go ahead.
Before we do that, you two were cops and had long, distinguished careers. If John or Chris, if you were Officer Whitman, scroll it up a little bit, Chris, and you've got the white Elantra, it's parked, you drove by it, and you ran the DL, and it came back to a guy named Bryan Kohberger. I'm going to ask you a leading question. Would you get out of your patrol car, go up and ring the bell, knock on the door, and try to contact one Bryan Kohberger and do some kind of a field interview or something like that?
The very first thing I would do is I'd be in immediate contact with my supervisor if we're talking a quadruple homicide. But it wouldn't be asking permission. It would be, I'm going to go up and do a knock and talk, which is an expression from California cops where you go knock on the door and you talk. And if you're sufficiently charming, you may be able to get information. And at the very least, if the guy doesn't answer the door, you still attempted to make contact, but maybe he does answer the door and you notice things that might be useful later on. Chris?
Exactly.
You're not going to, what you would do is just what John said. We would go up. Hi, it's the Popo. And now I just made Buddy bark.
Yeah,
Hey,
Buddy
it's
heard you
the
now.
Popo. It's the Popo, and we're here because your car matches a case that we're investigating. Do you have a moment? Can we talk? Okay. And you can get, wherever that's going to go. Okay. We'll never know today because they didn't do that. Okay. We even used to take pictures in case we wanted to throw it in a 6-pack. Or at least you say, hang on for a minute. I got some folks that want to talk to you. And yeah, that's the other thing. Bob says we'd even throw a ruse to get eyeballs on him to get him out of the car. Hey, your car's getting towed out here. We'd have dispatch sometimes even call in. There was an accident down the street. We think your car may have been hit. Can you come take a look? And they come out, and you get eyes on them. Okay. But let's hear what the chief said.
Well, is Bryan Kohberger trying to understand himself?
Go ahead, Karen. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I need you guys to tell me if I'm right or wrong. As a journalist covering this case, to me, if those officers never made contact for whatever reason, if they were ready to go do a door knock, as John said, and it was called in and somebody said, don't do it, to me, this was the turning point of the whole case, because they could have had at least a talk with him, a conversation with him, a report written, some kind of contact. And instead, 19 days later, he leaves campus, drives across the country, gets rid of untold, who knows what evidence, and they have to arrest him in Pennsylvania and then haul him all the way back to Idaho. To me, as a journalist looking at this was the most critical problem of the whole case. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree, and even to the extent that you see, I view BK as he has this overinflated image of his own intellect. I remember the Leopold and Loeb murders in the 1920s, where they did it because to prove that they were superior, the Nietzsche sort of, they were supermen and they could get away with a murder. I can see that in him. Now, what happens is he's feeling like he is, he's brilliant, he's got away with it, when suddenly you hear, and hi, it's the police and we'd like to talk to you. Is there a chance that he would have rabbited? That he would have thought, they're already on me. And if he ran, well,
hallelujah.
The guilty run when no man pursueth.
Consciousness of guilt.
You don't, now I want to stress that's purely speculative on my part. But who knows what would have happened if they had contacted him contemporaneous to the event.
It feels like police let him slip through their fingers, and we don't know why.
Well, I would add this also. When Chris and I are referring to police work, we were doing it, I started in the late 70s.
82.
And it has changed immeasurably. Officers, I have noticed, are less decisive. And I am not speaking specifically to these officers, but I am saying that I spent a little over 8 years working as a civilian at a police department here in Virginia, and I've noticed that the officers are more inclined to wait for someone to tell them what to do. The idea of self-initiative has been discouraged, so it may just be the law enforcement culture. It's different. We would go knock on a door and we wouldn't think twice about it.
Yeah, and I think what's going to be interesting here, which we're going to show everybody and keep revealing as we're processing this, is somebody made a decision, I think. Somebody, you've got a car, according to what we're reading here in the affidavit, this looks like it's the only white Elantra fitting the description on WSU's campus in their parking system. So, this is a big deal. And I don't think this officer Tiengo, in fact, I'm going to give him credit for going the extra mile and just having the intuitiveness to run him through the system. But something happened above his pay grade. And I think I'm onto something here about that.
Up here, I don't know. But what I do know is that behind this facade of a PhD student was really the guy in this selfie playing dress up. So I'd like to bring in Chief Gary Jenkins. He is the police chief at Washington State University and was the police chief at the Pullman Police Department in 2022, in April of 2022. So Chief Jenkins, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, take me back, if you will, to that interview that you did with Bryan Kohberger for the internship, the research assistantship program. Does anything stand out to you from that interview?
There was nothing that was really significant about that interview or that stood out about it. I interviewed 4 people, 2 on one day, 2 on the next, all on.
Okay, one of the themes I think we should notice here is downplay. Downplay, downplay, downplay. You heard the Moscow chief say, "Oh, we didn't have him. We didn't know." But until December 19th, when we got the DNA back. Well, actually, you did have him, according to this affidavit. In fact, you put it back into your affidavit that his car was identified on the campus at WSU by 2 officers. Okay, so either somebody is fudging and moving word salad here, okay, or like the chief there goes, well, there's really nothing that stuck out about him, but I'll talk to you on national news about him right now.
On Zoom. And I just made an assessment about who would be the best fit for that position and selected someone other than Bryan Kohberger. Didn't communicate in a fluid or conversational manner. He wasn't particularly personable. And so I just didn't feel like he would be able to develop that trust or rapport with my staff, and therefore wouldn't be an effective researcher with us.
So it wasn't that there was something like, oh, this guy's got some red flags, but it was more like maybe he's a little awkward. He's just not going to be a good fit.
That's exactly right. I didn't pick up on anything that was a significant red flag. It just was a matter of not being a good fit.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, okay, the staff is just bombing, right? Shortly, the administration with, if we give this guy a PhD, as Karen mentioned earlier, he's going to be forever connected to Washington State University. Okay. What do you think, John?
What I'm hearing is mitigation. If I had, and I have done interviews with people for positions, and I don't doubt that he probably didn't communicate well. But to tell me that there were like no red flags, if this, I don't know how much time this chief has in law enforcement, but I can tell you the number of times that you or I have talked with somebody and we've then thought to ourselves, I wouldn't be greatly surprised if I went home and found man-flesh sandwiches in his refrigerator. And you get a sense from that when you're working as a cop, and I'm not seeing that. What I'm hearing is, yeah, he just didn't get the job.
What do you think, Karen, is going on here?
It's, as you guys have said, mitigation, downplaying. He's also being very compartmentalized in his answer, because the question was, when you interviewed this guy in April of 2022, why didn't he get the job? Okay, so I'm giving him a lot of justice here. He's answering that question. Okay, there isn't any, but by the way, now that this case has been adjudicated and he's rotting in prison, let me tell you about at least 9 complaints that stacked up when he did get here, boots on the ground, starting in July of 2022. So from when he got there in July up until the murders November 13th, and then after the murders, there were all kinds of complaints about this guy. There were also traffic stops, as we know. We saw the August 21st traffic stop that was in Moscow on the officer's body-worn camera. So there's different ways to answer it, and I get what he's doing. But actually, this interview gets worse in terms of what he says, the next frame that you're going to show.
Yeah, because what we do want to show is in the affidavit, they got a Bolo November 25th saying, law enforcement, we're looking for a white Elantra. Go. And the officers went.
The homicides happen on King Road, and no, it's not in your jurisdiction, but my God, it's literally in your community. On my visits to Pullman and Moscow, it's almost like one big community, even though they're in 2 different states. It was always described to me that, there's a lot of going back and forth, people from Pullman to Moscow and vice versa, maybe for shopping. And a lot of the kids in Pullman know some of the kids in Moscow. So this had to be just absolutely shocking and startling. I'm thinking, my God, 10-minute drive away, 15-minute drive away, this happened.
It was shocking. It definitely was not in character for our region. And we are close-knit communities. We're somewhat isolated. The next closest bigger city would be either a 40-minute drive down to the Lewiston area or hour and a half drive up to Spokane. So we rely on each other a lot. And so that does make us close-knit, and we work together frequently. And on that day, when I heard about it, I made a cell phone call to Chief Fry to offer any kind of assistance that they might need. And he was actually out of town, I believe, in his car, traveling back to Moscow.
Okay, so he hears about it the day of the murders, and he's the police chief at WSU. All right, John, is he just going to hold that information, or you think he's going to get hold of dispatch and say, look, they got a quad in this at U of I. We'll get more details, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, Chris, we've seen it with adjoining cities that if a murder went down in Vista or Escondido or San Marcos or Fallbrook or
San Diego for that effect.
What's that?
For San Diego for that effect. They
Yeah, Vito Well went out that night, and it was simply a matter of routine that dispatch would come on the air and go station out all units, stand by for BOL 187 out of whatever city. And it would be out reasonably close to the event. So like if a murder went down in Carlsbad, we would know within minutes, the patrol officers would, because we'd communicate via radio with each other. But this idea that, well, we've got the information and the murder went down 8 miles away and we'll just sit on, I don't know how they do things there, but I can tell you how we did things in an era when we didn't have the same number of communication devices, that within minutes, every agency in the county plus the highway patrol would have the information.
Yeah, this question here, I think they were told to keep it off dispatch because he was on Broadcastify. Well, they don't know that at the time. I mean, the chief didn't know, this chief here, Jenkins, didn't know if where Fry was, but we do know that he picked up the phone and he called him. So somebody told Jenkins, hey, there's a homicide at U of I. You better call Fry and get the scoop. So he does. And he finds out that Fry's out of town. And so, the chief is on his way back and he's on the phone with the other chief saying, hey, whatever you guys need, let me know. Okay. Now, this is important to understand the chain of communication here, because we're going to get down to granular levels, i.e. patrol officers. Okay. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Karen, did you want to say something, hon? I wasn't sure. Okay.
No, we're good.
All right, here we go. Let's listen to the rest of his comment. So far, we have from ISP, he was looking at the investigation, but then you counter that with the actual evidence from Celebrite. Well, no, he's dressed up as Ted Bundy with a hood after studying and reading about Ted Bundy. And then we have the second piece of this. Well, what about this car thing? When did you guys know? And did he leave before you know? No, we had no information who he was, but of course we know now on the 25th when they put the Bolo out, Washington State University had his doggone car, had his name, and had his description. But let's hear what the chief says about all of this.
And so he thanked me for the offer, and he said he would let me know if he needed anything from us. And sure, and we, just like there was a vandal alert that was sent out to the University of Idaho campus, we also sent out an alert to the Washington State University campus to let them know what had happened and to, take precautions. And just so that they knew that there was a serious crime, quadruple homicide that occurred, and the killer was loose, and so we wanted to make sure that people were aware of that and they can take their own precautions.
A Bolo went out in November, a couple of weeks after the homicides, to law enforcement only. And there were a couple of Washington State University officers who actually noticed that there was a white Hyundai Elantra owned by Bryan Kohberger on campus. It was a different, year than they were looking for.
Right. The Bolo that we got was, I think, identical to the one that eventually went out to the public, but this was on November 28th.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's check that just in case. According to the affidavit,
he's got his facts wrong. What do you know?
Go figure.
Yeah.
Go figure. November 25th, it looks like all law enforcement agencies were given a Bolo. And he's got it how many days later? 3 days later?
He said it was the 28th, but it was
28th.
really the 25th.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. John, do you think the defense would have had a field day with that?
Yeah, absolutely. The defense would have had a field day with that. I think it would have been a variation on were you lying in the affidavit or are you lying now?
Amen. And that's exactly how they frame it, isn't it, John?
Yep. That's exactly how they'd frame it. And what I'm also seeing here is you could attribute this. I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Yep.
You could attribute this to just simple human error. But this is the hazard of putting a police administrator who probably has only been briefed and likely only has a marginal understanding of the complete case. But he's got to be the one, he's got to be the face of the organization instead of putting investigators on who might, who know the case, but might not put the best political spin on it. So
we gave him the benefit of the doubt, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, hey, can you send us the information about the two officers who found the car? We'd like to get their written reports. We'd like to hear all the information that they had that night on the 28th, according to the affidavit. And, we just like to hear from them, i.e. the public has a right to know.
Yeah. And what they told the public was you can go fly a kite. Maybe we'll get back to you next year, but we might need more time. And it's worth pointing out that after we got this response letter back, it was about 5 days to a week later that WSU posted some documents and video because they were inundated, like the other agencies, with FOIA requests like ours. So after this response, and just my journalism nose guessing, they got about probably hundreds and hundreds of FOIA requests. They had the audacity to respond to probably the major networks with, yeah, we'll get back to you next April. And they have teams of lawyers who would have immediately fired letters back saying, oh no, that's under the law. That's not going to happen. You need to release. And lo and behold, about a week later, we did get some documents released. Of course, we didn't get Officer Tiango and Officer Whitman's reports or the CAD report, the computer aided dispatch report from November 29th at 12:28 a.m. and at 12:58 a.m. So we're still waiting to hear back on those. Side note, you guys may have heard that conveniently the state of Idaho legislature changed their public records law in July, the same month that BK was sentenced. And what they did was they give priority if you are have an Idaho address, Idaho resident. If you're out of state, like 98% of the media covering this, you get to wait another 3 weeks to 4 weeks.
Wow. I would be fascinated in knowing, now you talk about the officer's reports, to have a timeline as when does the BOL come out?
Yep.
What time? What specific time? Did these officers go directly from the police station or wherever they were to this place? I mean, this.
Well, that's why we want to hear it, like you talk.
Random patrol? I suspect not. I suspect they already had their eyes on this car.
Yeah, well, this is what Karen and I and you, this is why this show tonight I think is so important, because something is up at River City, and it just doesn't, it's not, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right, just doesn't sound right. Okay? And we're not trying to be critical. We're just trying to point out inconsistencies and go, help us understand. You have a police chief or you have a lieutenant from ISP. And by the way, these are all administrators. Let's keep that as a fact. Okay. These aren't sergeants and below and, groundhogs. Okay. Guys in the trenches and in the holes. Okay. Those guys and gals, they did the right thing. They went out and found the car. Okay. But once they found the car, something happened. And listen how he plays this.
They sent a Bolo out to the local law enforcement agencies with a vehicle of interest that they labeled as law enforcement sensitive, meaning that we should not share it beyond the law enforcement community. And the description of the vehicle was a white Hyundai Elantra with between the years of 2011.
Now sorry, I hit the wrong button. So that's the car. One is a 2016 and one is a 2011, et cetera.
Oh, they look completely different, Chris.
I know. And who in the world would not have told Moscow Police Department, hey, I got the same car, it's the same make, it's the same model, and I got a guy that looks like the same dude, but you're not interested in this, so you know what? Forget it. We're not going to tell you about it. Forget it. Okay.
And so one of our officers, within 16 hours of receiving that Bolo, was checking our parking database that includes information about vehicles that have parking permits or that pay to park on campus, and found a white Hyundai Elantra that was with Pennsylvania plates, registered to Bryan Kohberger, but it was a 2015.
So if I'm hearing the two cops here on the panel with me, is that you guys, it doesn't matter if it's 2015, it's 2011, it's a 2020. It's all about the car, the make, and the model, right? Or the color. And as John said, maybe it's not white, maybe it's silver gray. The fact that they had one and it was 2015 and they were under the assumption, well, we thought it was 2011 through 2013. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is what this chief is saying that they did. It's, if I'm hearing you right, that's not what police work, that cops don't do that.
Well, I've got an even
Competent
bigger.
cops don't do that.
Why was there a delay of 16 hours before someone accessed the parking database? Why? And during 16 hours, if they had the equivalent, in San Diego County, we had something called ARGIS, which was Automated Regional Justice Information System. And you could plug vehicles in. And I'm certain, and we're talking about Bronze Age technology. We're talking about this was available in 1984, 1985. So I'm guessing in 2022, you probably had an even more up-to-date data management system The moment that information got to that department, somebody should have been, if they have a crime analyst or a detective, should have been going through those files. But, oh, well, I'm supposed to be proud that 16 hours after your agency got the information, somebody decided to look in the computer databases. What's the very first thing? Remember what my wife used to do, Chris? She would get into that system and she would, I mean, she was a miracle worker.
Joycey?
You get a partial license plate and she'd get you the plate and who owned it and who his boyfriend was. And I mean, and that was, again,
She would walk over to your desk
She was
and
awesome.
say, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but I saw this Bolo. Here's your car. And you'd go, what?
Yeah.
Where? What Bolo? Show me the Bolo. And she would show you the Bolo. She'd give you the car, and it was on. Game on. And even Cheryl chimed in on this one.
my wife's name was Joyce, and I lost her in December from Parkinson's disease. But she was both a fingerprint examiner and a crime analyst. And you'd get a case where you had next to nothing, and she'd come walking in with an 1.5 inch stack of documents and tell you, you know, this is, I think, your guy. Oh, and by the way, his brother-in-law's got a felony warrant, and I mean, so if this stuff could be done in the 1980s, I'm guessing it could be done in 2022.
And, you know, John, that's a great point. This chief is actually patting himself on the back. Oh, 16 hours later, look how fast it was. No, there's no excuse in today's fast data age. Great point. Okay. But this guy is saying, oh, well, the 16-hour delay is like a positive thing. You could drive a truck through that.
Think of the Leticia Hernandez case. You had people in on the computers the night that little girl went missing.
That's right.
Okay? And so this is a quadruple homicide. I don't know why somebody wasn't on the phone saying, if you don't know how to work the system, get somebody in here who can do it.
And I'm going to show you something in coming up here. You're going to find, and the audience is going to find disturbing if it's real. Okay. Because we have sensed from the very beginning that there is so much political movement in this between the two communities now. I was just railing on University of Idaho. I'm on WSU now because there's something going on here based on all the information that is now flooding out from these professors. You know, hey, this guy's going to be a predator, all the things that Karen talked about, all the things she's uncovering. And then we're, you know, collectively going, wait, we can't be seeing this. This can't be happening here. Okay.
But University of Idaho is, well, I should say Moscow PD, right? Because we already saw the Moscow PD chief said, when asked, when were you on this guy? And he said, oh, well, December 19th. Well, wait a minute. You know, the Bolo went out on November 25th. And 3 days later, or 4 days later, on the November 29th, is when WSU officers drove by the house, BK's house, see the white Elantra, and bingo, all that lined up. Okay, so now you've got the Moscow PD, Moscow chief saying, oh, well, we didn't know, he wasn't on our radar, and had we known, we would have never let him leave and go to Pennsylvania. Well, you had him. Washington State had him.
Yeah, they had him not only in the system, they went out and found the car, his address, and his driver's license before he even left the camper. Right. Now, we're to believe then, as a community, those of you in Pullman and those of you in Moscow, if you believe that your law enforcement agency is competent in relationship to the worst homicide in your state's history, and for that part, on the West Coast in the nation at that point. 4 innocent college students murdered while sleeping in their house. And if you believe that a Bolo was sent out to every law enforcement agency in the country, by the way, it goes into the National Crime Information Center. And that's why white Honda Elantras were popping up all over the country. Remember the one that crashed and everybody said, oh, that's the car and all this other stuff? Okay. Well, that's because every cop in the country has that MDT in front of them. And dispatch puts this Bolo out, and it would be like beep, 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 beep. All units, you know, blada, 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 blada. Okay. We are looking for a white Elantra, you know, Hyundai, blada, blada, you know, from the years of whatever it was, 1840. Okay. We're looking for a white Hyundai Elantra. Okay. Are we to suppose that the very same day that the chief picks up the phone from WSU and calls Moscow PD Fry, that he doesn't get in the chain of communication the moment they find this white Hyundai Elantra on the videotape? Are we supposed, and if people support him, then you know what? You get what you support.
I'd add something else, Chris, and this red herring of the, well, it was a 2016 and it wasn't a 2015. I can remember the night we had the high-speed pursuit of the kidnapping suspects, and the original BOL came out as a gray Camaro, and 15 minutes later, I'm seeing a dark gray Firebird, close enough for government work. And as it turns out, what do you know? It wasn't a Camaro. It was a very similar model. So to tell me that you're going to say, well, we didn't look at it because it was a year off, with basically the compact cars being all cookie cutter, I mean, I'd be stopping Nissans and Toyotas, anything with that same sort of, I call them bug shapes.
Well, and this is why it's important when you guys, if you're just getting here, to go watch the beginning of this program where we played the downplay of what was found on Bryan Kohberger's phone, where he goes, well, you know, yeah, we did find information about him following the investigation. Fast forward to Celebrate, they go, well, they had serial killers. He's dressing up as Ted Bundy. He's playing Ted Bundy. Do you guys see a difference there? Or is it just, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. I don't know, but I think the politician, the theme that I'm feeling and seeing, and I think we're going to be right at some point, just like when everybody said, you know, he's not doing Ted Bundy. Well, guess what? Yeah, he was. Okay. He's not going to be a creeper coming in, you know, voyeur. Guess what? Yeah, he is. Okay. He's blah, blah, blah. And the rest goes on. Okay. But listen how the chief even plays this even further.
So the Bolo was very specific about the vehicle make, the vehicle model, and the vehicle year.
Blame the Bolo.
And the color. So he didn't submit that as a tip. And then later, that was on.
Okay, hang on. Chris, this really bothered me when I heard the chief say he didn't submit this as a tip. He's referring to the officer who found BK's vehicle parked outside BK's apartment. Why? It would never go in as a tip on the tip line. You would have picked up the phone. You would have called the lead investigator, one Corporal Brett Payne, or the ISP, somebody from ISP, whatever. But it would probably be Moscow PD lead investigator and say, Payne, I've got a 2015 white Elantra. I got a DL description. This guy's got bushy eyebrows, just like the surviving roommate said. It would never go through the tip line.
No, it wouldn't be
A
a tip
line
line.
is for the general public. It's not for law enforcement agencies working together on the same huge major case.
You would be on the phone calling the detective to get out there.
Exactly. So why is this police chief Jenkins feeding us what sounds like just a load of BS? What do you mean a tip line? It's not how it works.
He's parsing. He's, as you mentioned earlier, he's compartmentalizing. And what he's counting on is that nobody's going to know what you know in the journalism area. So what he's trying to do is minimize whatever internal failures. And here's the other thing. We don't know how much this guy actually knows about the case. You know, and we don't know what he was briefed on. And we don't even know that basically the university said, yeah, we don't know you don't know anything about it, but you need to go out there and be the scarecrow. You got to be out, you got to hang on the pole and scare the crows away. Because he doesn't impress me as knowing his answers about the case. I would refer to, and Chris would know what I'm talking about when we interview people, they're mushy. He's leaving himself room to reconfigure answers, and this business of trying. Well, they said it was a 2016. Really? This is just sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's insulting if he thinks that the public who follows this would think that law enforcement agency to law enforcement agency, they'd go through a tip line. I mean, it's almost like bad theater at this point.
It is now. How many
I don't know
times,
what else to think of it.
How many times was your husband called out from the house? How many times was I called out from the house? Hundreds of times. Hey, I don't know whether this is, they call you at 3 o'clock in the morning. You go, hey, Detective Lamb, I don't know whether this is worth your time, but, you need to go, we may have a lead here. And you know what? You get out of bed and you go do it, because that's what homicide detectives do.
Yeah.
And that's why, if you're just joining us, you need to purchase Beach Bedlam Blanket
Bedlam
by John Lamb, who's our guest this evening. It's in the link below. Let's make it #1 on Amazon. And so think about this, right? Even further to dovetail on what you guys are saying. Hey, Chief, darling, yeah. Hey, Moscow's got a quadruple homicide over there. What? 4 students killed. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me call Fry. Hang on. Hey, Fry. Yeah. Oh, okay. You're on your way back in. Okay. Hey, what do you need? How can we help you? Do you need resources? What's going on? How can blah, blah, blah. You know what, Frank? I'll keep you posted. Okay. And we'll keep you up to date. All right. Roger that. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and throw an alert out to all of our kids up here, just in case. You got a suspect? Not yet. I'm not even there yet. I'm just getting briefed over the phone. Okay, no problem. I understand. Let me know when you're going to throw the Vandy alert out, and we'll fire ours up as well. Okay, great. Thank you. And that's from the Clery Act, because they have to notify students if there's a homicide nearby or on the campus. Go ahead, Karen.
And not for nothing, one of the WSU students who got that alert was one BK. And we know that because he mentioned it when he was interviewed by Lieutenant Gilbertson and Brett Payne in Pennsylvania on December 30th.
Go figure.
Go figure.
Go figure. It gets better.
So he didn't submit that as a tip. And then later, that was on graveyard shift. And then later on day shift.
whoops, that doesn't line up with the affidavit.
No, it doesn't. The times don't add up, do they?
Let's see. Well, let's check. 12:28 a.m. That sounds like morning watch or night shift. And man, they went out to the place within 30 minutes, right? Last time we checked. Right?
28 plus 30 is 58.
Yep. Go figure. Go figure. And then they went in also into the system as a whole. And I know where that's at. That's over here on the Washington. Let me share this one here. Sorry. 12:28 a.m. is when they go looking for this car that they had the Bolo on, and this guy finds it at 12:58.
30 minutes later.
30 minutes
Same
later.
shift. They're working the same shift.
Look at,
Am
but
I wrong?
he go, yeah, located at 1630. So he actually goes to the location because it's in the parking lot, and he physically goes eyes on this white Elantra. Wow. And wait a minute, Chief, your guys forgot to submit it as a tip?
Really? You don't say.
If I'd found the
Not buying
possible suspect vehicle, or the officers did on our department, it would have been ring, ring. We think we got the suspect vehicle. You need to get out here right now.
Right now.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, great point, John. Why wasn't Brett Payne called out at 1 a.m. to WSU student housing parking lot to have his own eyes on that white Elantra outside of BK's apartment that night?
Again, it strikes at perhaps there's been an entire change in how murders are worked. Because Chris, and I know you can remember this, Karen, we would work murders 36 hours straight. We would crash at our desk for a little bit and go right back to work. And if people called us, we came out and talked to people.
remember the couch in the juvenile interview room?
Yeah, the thing about it though is that this 30-minute interval from when the BOL to them going out, it sounds to me like they already knew where the car was. They left the station and drove right to, or wherever it was they got it. 30 minutes sounds to me like somebody already had eyes on the car. And you know the way police stations are. There may have been rumors circulating that an Elantra was involved. And when this came out, I think that they probably already knew about this vehicle. And I can imagine them driving over going, oh, please let it be there. Please let it be there.
Amen. Yeah. I'm going to get this guy. Please let it be.
Yes.
Please let it be.
Was driving around.
I remember the Bolo came out November 25th. And mind you, this is a holiday weekend. So we know that November 24th was a Thursday. It was Thanksgiving. That's the day Chris and I showed up in Moscow to do our own video of the crime scene and all that kind of stuff in the city of Moscow. So Friday the day after Thanksgiving would have been November 25th, if my memory serves. And so the Bolo goes out on Friday. So then you have the 26th, 27th, 28th. 4 days later, which is the beginning of the following week, is when it wasn't 16 hours later, as Chief Jenkins was so proudly saying. And to your point, John, what the heck took 16 hours? It should have taken 16 minutes, maybe. So now it's, yeah, exactly. November 29th, 4 days later, somebody goes, oh, hey, we got the Bolo on the biggest case of anybody's lifetime here. And then they run it. And then within 30 minutes, they get the vehicle right then. So that's good policing.
But this presumes the chief understands how this stuff works. And I'm sorry, I've known chiefs of police who, my golden retriever was better qualified to be a chief of police than they were. So he may not have understood this, but this is where he's not being served well by his underlings, because they could have come up with a better story than 16 hours later, we thought to look in the computer database. This is frustrating to listen to.
It is. It's infuriating, really.
And we're all witnessing it together, because this is national news with Anjanette Levy. I mean, and others. I mean, you've got 60 Minutes, you've got Fox News, you've got CNN, you got Long Crime, you got everybody out there. Okay, and others, which
saw that same vehicle parked in graduate student housing. And again, it was not within the date parameters.
So those two officers didn't end up sending that information over to Moscow PD because of the date discrepancy or the model year discrepancy?
That's correct. Yeah, it was not sent over to their tip line.
Interesting. So did it just come up that they had queried it on that date?
Right. When Moscow PD did identify Bryan Kohberger as a suspect, and
so they worked backwards from
get off the floor. Go ahead, Karen.
I know, if we're to believe what Jenkins is saying, and quite frankly, I don't know what to believe and not to believe. He's saying December 19th, almost a month later, when they get this guy in Pennsylvania, then they work backwards. This is like backwards policing, from what I'm hearing, that they go into their database and they must have called up a CAD in order to say and show, okay, Officer A and B, right? Whitman and Tiango did run it. They did find it. And what, the ball was dropped? Is that what they want us to believe?
I don't have the words to describe, because of the difference in the year. And they expected sworn police officers from basically an allied agency to contact the tip line. This is write a report, and that report is hand carried to the Moscow police. A tip line. Really?
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm waiting for the ringmaster with the whip saying, here come the dancing elephants. What kind of circus was being run there?
Yeah. I mean, they find the car.
It's insane.
They find a car matching the description, with the exception of the year. You got the right color, the right model. Okay. You've got a guy that looks like the right guy based on pulling his driver's license up. It's in the right area, okay, i.e. 9 miles away from the homicide. We've traveled hundreds of miles. Yeah, it's nothing, right? It's like Vista. Go to Vista, okay, you'll find it. And now they've got all these things lining up. And this is where I'm not going to blame the patrol guys in any way, shape, or form right now, because this is above their pay grade. And by the way, one of the guys is gone. The guy who actually ran it, Tiango, he's now with Pullman PD. They gave the second guy a promotion, who now works sex crimes. Okay. And, he's not able to, allegedly, based on the chief, find a homicide suspect's car, but by golly, he's going to find that rapist. Don't worry. He'll be right there for you. Okay. I'm not going to completely go down that lane yet, but they gave him a promotion and they moved him up the chain of command. Okay. Now it gets worse. Put your seatbelt on.
To them with the vehicle, then they ran some checks to see who had run that plate previously, and discovered those two officers had checked the vehicle, as well as a previous traffic stop that one of our officers made on Bryan Kohberger in his vehicle from, I think, back in October.
He's reading. You can see him reading talking points. I'm just going to back up here for a minute. Okay, look at him. He's reading off of, okay, this is what we're going to say and how we're going to say it. It just so happens, go figure, that Scott Green, in his book on how to manage when evil comes to your campus, It was his team that assembled all the talking points. Okay. You don't think Jenkins was in that circle, do you? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm confused. Oh, and by the way, we need an outlet. We got to get our local guys on board. Thank goodness for the national media, because this stuff, I wouldn't have seen this stuff if it wasn't for the reporting of the national media. And then I start, we're all starting to connect the dots and go, wait a minute. Now, don't misunderstand me, anybody. Bryan Kohberger's the guy. They got the guy. He's the right guy. He's the murderer. End of story. I am not saying they got the wrong guy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying something else is up here. Okay. And they circled the wagons, and they could have got him a much, much earlier, because now the messaging through word salad is coming out through their own sources. And here's what I mean by that.
I think back in October.
And I handled the conversation with one of the lead investigators, which is Lieutenant Darren Gilbertson for Idaho State Police. And
which he was not the lead investigator. It was Payne. And when Payne left, they assigned Gilbertson as the talking head. And Gilbertson was the one at the very beginning of this video who said, well, he was following the investigation. Anybody else hear the ice cream truck going by when that answer came by? It was like you could hear the bells in the background. Okay. So this is his contact up there in the local newspaper.
through that conversation, I learned their process. And I think some of the most interesting things are we basically learned they really didn't have much after weeks of investigating. And it's not for lack of effort or lack of leads. And they explored all sorts of potential suspects. And once they corroborated whereabouts and checked alibis or phone information and places people said they were at the time and which bar they were at the night before and all that kind of stuff, they really got down to it, and they were checking a lot of people off.
Okay, so there are 3 lanes that they went down. Personal interviews. They spent a lot of time chasing the knife, the K-bar knife, okay? And they spend a lot of time on the digital footprints. Okay, here's a call coming in on the next one. You have video of a white car. You have information, a sheath about a little knife and a car. Knife, car. Okay. If you would have spent as much time on the car, okay, WSU right across the street happened to have one. And you could have just run over there and say, is this the car? And maybe the knife would be there with the car. We don't know. We don't know. John, am I missing something?
No, you're right on target. And listening to that journalist, he tried to make it sound like the fundamental things, like, they went to bars. Why? I mean, that would be, not unless they had been at bars earlier in the evening.
They were at bars.
Okay, then that would make sense. But we already know that the white Elantra, or the white car, is already playing a role in this. No, I think you've nailed it, and I'm seeing a lot of dancing going on here.
It gets better.
Oh boy.
The investigation stretched into December, and they really didn't have much. And the key really was that knife sheath. And they ran into some walls, and it wasn't until they finally got that key information from the FBI that they were able to turn the case around and check.
So they were running into walls, waiting for the DNA to come back. Okay. When, again, I'm reiterating this for everybody, because this is And it's not even old school police work. It's, hey, we found a car, that matched the BOL you put out on the 25th. We're over here, 8 miles away. We're right here. Okay. Oh, Chief, yeah. Should I call the tip line? Nah. They're looking for a knife.
So so basically what this reporter is telling Bryan Etten in that interview is, well, they didn't have much. Wait a minute. You had the smoking gun under your nose the whole time. In my opinion, the smoking gun was the white Elantra that they could have had. They could have had him never leaving the state of Idaho. And who knows what else to your point, Chris, other evidence would have been uncovered. And it's mind-boggling. And I would just say this as well. I say we collectively, the families of the victims and the public waited 2.5 years, and we thought there was going to be a trial. Everybody was prepped and ready to go for a trial in which an enormous amount of this information would have come out. Well, it didn't happen. The controversial plea deal happened instead. This guy was sentenced. He's now in prison. And now we're at the mercy of 4 agencies. Washington State University is just one of them. Moscow PD, Latah County Prosecutor's Office, and actually the court too, which Judge Hippler told us it's going to be a few months for them to go through and redact information. On a case like this that affected so many families and so many people, we are now at the mercy of drip, drip, drip information, their selective documents and video that they want to release. We saw even as recently as yesterday, you've got a Law and Crime Network was able to get the body cam video of the officers going into the crime scene at the time of the call on November 13th. And, it's important that we go through this. It's important that we're, there's a reason we're peeling this onion back and dissecting it, because we all want answers. And if we rely just on, the TV interviews, the media interviews with some of these police chiefs, you're not getting served. The public is not being served because they're serving up their political spin and their word salad and whatnot. But to Chris's point, the evidence doesn't lie, right, John? I mean, the documents, the affidavit, if we're to believe that the affidavit isn't true from 3 years ago, or we're to believe that these guys are circling the wagons and they're not telling the whole truth now, I'm going with the affidavit. I'm going with what was documented 3 years ago.
Yeah, and I agree with you, hon. It's not the guys on the ground. Again, I keep going back, right? We keep talking about, okay, something happened because when you see that video of Officer Nunez, that patrol officer, when they go upstairs, and we're going to break that down next week sometime. Those guys are doing their thing. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we could critique, some things going on there, but at the same time, they'd never, ever dealt with a quadruple homicide. I mean, John, we had 3 murders in a single night in 95, right? I was at a crime scene and we heard, shots over on South Cleveland, and it was another dead guy in the middle of the road. So I can't blame them for not having the experience. Okay. We get that piece of the puzzle. Okay. But once it went down, okay, you see the patrol guys start to go, okay, my training, I got to kick in. What do I do? Who do I talk to? Where do I go? And that's where the 3 stripers come by. Okay. And one of the things the public needs to maybe understand, in larger agencies or bigger agencies, like, John was a homicide sergeant, so he could show up And he had more rank than the lieutenant on the scene, because whatever he said, it happened. That's how it goes. Okay. Because even though he didn't have a little butter bar here, if the lieutenant says, hey, I want to go over that line, the homicide sergeant goes, no, you're not going over there. You wait right here. Or I'll tell you what, you sign this and I'll make sure that your day is destroyed in trial. And they never sign. They never sign the log and cross that yellow tape. But when you go back and you look at just even the recent body camera, guess who shows up on the scene and is immediately picking up the phone and start calling everybody, Captain Barrett and all this other stuff. And then guess what? Well, Nunez is talking to one of the victims. What's he want to do? He tells him, I'm going to go do a walkthrough. What? You can't make this stuff up. Okay. A walkthrough? Why do you need to go in the building? Why does Thompson need to go in the building? Why does the other DA need to go into the building? It's just a line of, like John says, you know, what did you say? Where's the whip and when do the elephants come? You know, with their, you know, hooking each other's tails from the circus, and you just walk them through. Are you kidding me? And that's the next video I hope Law and Crime releases, is when all of those, you know, people start to show up, because now we understand when you hear a journalist say this.
Of boxes that he owned the white car, that he matched the eyewitness description from Dylan Mortensen, one of the surviving roommates. They checked his cell phone information, historic location data, and, you know, they were able to start to piece together this case. Yeah, and there was a question at that press conference, which you and I both attended, about whether or not there was any connection that they found between Kohberger and the 4 victims, which they said no, despite best efforts. But then specifically about the Mad Greek restaurant that Maddie and Xana had worked at, and you know, had Kohberger ever gone there? Was that, and that's long been considered a potential link, and I don't think they even tried to dispel that is certainly possible. But there was a really interesting story out of the Independent over the weekend, and it addressed just that issue, that the Celebrite experts who were expected to testify on behalf of the state were deep into Kohberger's phone data and found that he had passively attached to the Mad Greek Wi-Fi, but it doesn't even mean that he was there.
Oh, well, okay. They also found that he was cosplaying Ted Bundy. Okay. But it doesn't mean, you know, just because he had a passive connection to the Mad Greek restaurant where 2 of the victims, you know, worked, that doesn't mean they're connected in any way, shape, or form. Nothing to see here. Let's move along. I'm a journalist. Okay. Karen, this is your lane.
He's buying what the police chiefs and probably the universities are selling. That's what it sounds like to me. Because in my brain, this is the way I would think of it as a journalist. Okay, so we know that BK's phone hit on the Wi-Fi at Mad Greek restaurant. Common sense tells us one of 3, there's only 3 options. 1, he went there to eat and he never ran into the 2 victims. Number 2, he went there to eat and he did run into the 2 victims and maybe chose them, selected them, what have you. Or 3, he was just walking by the Mad Greek restaurant, never went in. And by the way, he's a known vegan, and they had vegan dishes on that menu. And so he was hanging out, you know, worst case scenario, he didn't go eat there, but he was hanging out in the same places as some of the victims. So I can't ever say there would be no connection. You can say, we don't know what the actual nexus is, but common sense tells you BK hung out outside the Mad Greek because we got the Wi-Fi info at least once. That's better than, oh, well, there's nothing to see here. There's no connection.
John, I
right.
walk in your office.
So he didn't go. Yeah, he didn't go into the restaurant. So
Yeah,
he went code 5 outside the parking lot where he wouldn't be seen.
You mean
Code
he's
5 had the expression he was surveilling the place.
like, but there's no stalking connection. Sorry.
Well, I haven't had any Kool-Aid this evening. It's actually Flavor Aid. That's, hey, trivia question.
Okay, this is how it used to go because he was actually my boss at one time. Hey, Sarge, yeah. I got a passive hit on a Wi-Fi on the suspect's phone, but I don't think it's connected.
And then when we got done laughing,
no pun intended, right? You know, here, fill out your papers, McDonough. You're going to the beach team. Hey, hang on.
San Miguel police.
And even if he ate there, it doesn't mean that he ran into Maddie or Xana. So this doesn't conflict with something that law enforcement has said, but that.
Oh, by the way, Sarge, Xana and Maddie worked there, but he could have, even if he ate something, it may not be anything because they're dead, you know. And I just want to let you know that this afternoon. It doesn't mean I'm, you know, kind of not connecting any dots here, but you know, how much did he pay? Or I wonder what. Well, I guess, you know, they got to be friendly and nice to everybody, you know, up there if they want information. Okay.
Well, wait a minute. I was a reporter in I wouldn't call Oceanside, California, a small town. I mean, it was probably 130,000 people at that point. But I was able to do my job, and I didn't want to toe the company line. I came in there and I asked the tough questions because I had readers reading my stories, and I had to answer to a tough editor who had a lot of questions about stuff.
Nor did your predecessor, Dave Parrish, who you may not have. Dave Parrish was.
I didn't work with him. Yeah.
He was a magnificent journalist. He didn't toe the company line, and keen intellect. What I'm seeing here is a dog up on his, you know, paws going, if you give me another treat. He's got to work there. I get it, but he's sounding like an apologist for the PD.
Exactly. And watch, it gets better. It gets better. And you're right. I mean, you know, Oceanside is the debris where it's where
the debris meets the sea.
Debris meets the sea was our.
Or my other thing for the recommendation I had for the centennial in 1986 was Oceanside, safer than Beirut, with better paramedics. I didn't get the award. I didn't win the contest with that.
Yeah, and
what a shock.
Yeah, and at that time we were, you know, 130 to 170 because you add 50,000 Marines out of Camp Pendleton who all want to fight, and now they're at 170 plus, almost 2.25. So, yeah, it's different times. And back then, you know, it was great times. Great times had by all. But you're right, Karen. I mean, you got thrown out of the police department.
I did.
Dave Herring threw you out of the department.
There was an officer-involved shooting, and
it wasn't John's, was it?
No, it wasn't John's, and it was my beat. And in an officer-involved shooting, you're not getting any details for a while. I mean, first of all, there's notification that has to be made, et cetera, et cetera. And so I knew the only place you're not going to phone it in. Of course, I went into the police department and talked to people that I talked to 5 days a week on my regular beat anyway. And I really just wanted reaction because it was a horrific incident. And I wanted to kind of bring the humanity to the situation. And I knew I was just going to run comments from, I wasn't going to use people's names. Nobody would want their names in that. Some might not. Anyway, I was trying to get color. In journalism, it's called the color part of the story. And Dave Herring saw me in the hall and obviously was busy with the, well, I don't think he was that busy. I think they left him out, but whatever, the officer involved shooting went on, and he felt that he had the right to throw me out of the police station. So, and, you know, I said, no, I'm not going. And I wasn't going to let him lay a glove on me. I wasn't going to let him touch me. And so I took the high road, and I said, well, I'm going to leave, but you don't win on this, and I'm still going to do my story. And so there you go.
You were known.
More depth about it. But again, Gilbertson had spoken at that presser, as did Payne, that they just never found any connection, nothing that they could point to that they would have spoken to at trial. We've long known that they didn't, and through court records, including Bryan Kohberger's defense, that they didn't have the name until December 19th. And there's a lot of conspiracy.
Okay, the name December 19th, and it's a conspiracy to look at the affidavit, okay, according to the local news. It's a conspiracy to look at this affidavit and see this name on November 29th. It's a conspiracy that everybody's looking at this affidavit and seeing the name Kohberger at this address at WSU, and that car was found connected to that name. So everybody buckle up, because what we're seeing here is a conspiracy against the narrative.
A lot of questions about that. But you've got to think, if they have that name earlier than December 19th, they're out in Pennsylvania right away, or they don't let him leave Washington. So I think people really need to sort of take a step back and think about that.
Okay, so we just did. Go ahead,
Well,
Karen.
I would tell him, go read the ISP reports, and then overlay that with the affidavit. We're just going off the facts. How could this reporter say the first time they had his name was December 19th, when we're spending the last 2 hours talking about how they ran white Elantras, they had it November 29th, and per the police chief, if we're to believe him, well, it didn't get passed through the tip line. Okay. Well, I think this reporter needs to go back and check the facts. I think he needs to stop throwing accusations out there and just look at the facts. We're not calling it a conspiracy if you don't believe us. There's actually nothing conspiratorial about taking the facts of the affidavit and questioning what these police chiefs are out there saying.
Well, this guy impresses me as he came from a mushroom farm. He's been kept in the dark and fed. You can fill in the rest of it.
Go buy his book. Those kind of one-liners are in there. They're hysterical. Beach blanket bedlam.
Chris can attest to the fact that this is the way I talked out in the field. God blessed me with many attributes, but a verbal filter was not one of them.
We'd be circled up. It could be the worst thing in the world. John, I should have had you have your pipe while this was playing. But anyway, John would sit there and he'd go, just like what he said. That guy's in a mushroom farm or shooting into occupied clothing. I remember that one. What do we got, Sarge? It's a shooting into occupied clothing.
Yeah. Misdemeanor murder, felony vandalism of clothing, or the one murder that the body that was found in the river that I said, well, do we either charge whoever did this with murder or littering an inland waterway? So I'm not going to win any Mr. Compassionate awards, but This guy sounds like a flack for the PD.
You know, John, it wouldn't surprise me if his next job
Get hired by them.
is the PIO. Although I have to say, I was a public information officer, civilian. I always emphasize civilian after a journalism career, and I never had to lie. I was never going to lie. I will tell you what I can tell you, and then if there's things that the investigation will not allow me to talk about, that's how you do it. You always can find something to share with the media about anything from a murder to a stolen vehicle to whatever, gang violence, whatever it is. And you have to tell it straight. And obviously these police chiefs have not attended the FBI crisis communication courses that PIOs are required to take, because it's very helpful. But, you know, half of them are, the police chiefs aren't elected, you know, sheriffs are. But anyway, it just, it just bothers me that people just can't just lay the facts out for the public. Let the public will decide. They're not stupid. They bring smarts to the table, and it's not your job to make, you know, sweeping, you know, accusations. Just
and there's more.
Lay it out.
And there's more. It gets better.
It's ironic because Kohberger had been let go from his TA job actually on December 19th. It actually has done.
What? Go figure. The exact same day he's released from WSU, he's arrested in Pennsylvania. What are the odds? After having his name on November 25th, what are the odds? I mean, I don't know. Maybe what are the odds? This is unbelievable.
You're speaking to the fact that they lied to us.
What?
They
lied to you? Wait a minute. I got to back that up. What are the odds that he was arrested on the exact same day he was fired from WSU, and then you find out somebody lied?
And let go from his TA job actually on December 19th. It actually has Dollinger speaking to the fact that they lied to us. They lied to us when we asked them specifically about police officers around the community, asking specifically about K-bar knives.
Yeah.
And at the time they said,
used VPNs.
Whoops. So, I just made a big mistake. I hit the wrong button. Hang on. I got to get back. I love how the two of them are like, oh, yeah, I remember when he said that. Yeah, they lie nowadays. They lie nowadays. You know, yeah, and we're journalists.
Well, listen, back in the day, two reporters wouldn't be like, oh yeah, they lied. Two reporters would be like, okay, it's going on the front page above the fold. I'm doing a big story. And then I'm going to go interview other law enforcement experts who are going to tell me why lying is so bad and erodes the public's trust. And I'm going to blow it up. And I might even do a two-part series on the cops lying to the public. Okay. You don't laugh about it. Yeah. Haha. I remember that. You pin them to the wall. You expose it and you show the public, hey, the people entrusted to run your police department are actually caught in a lie. We want you to know. We feel like you should know about this.
And that's why they won't interview with us, because Karen has asked for interviews on every one of those people.
We've reached out to U of I President Scott Green, I don't know, 5 or 6 times at least. Even the PIO, I can't remember what her name is, the public information officer for the university refused to come on our program. Repeated invitations to come on. We've reached out to Dollinger. He wrote me back saying, no, I'm not going to come on your podcast. We've reached out to Jenkins. We haven't heard back. We reached out to Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson. No response. We're doing our job.
if they don't want to help us, then, we'll help them by doing programs like this. It's it's the 21st century. And when you're professional, i.e., I have a professional, she's right up there. Okay? She's been there, done that, right, John? You've seen it, you've read it, you've been there. And, if you want to send us stuff that says, hey, we'll give you the answers in April of 2026.
Next year.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Not a problem. We'll keep playing the game. And guess what? We're not going away. Okay? It ain't going to happen. We're not moving on. Okay?
Half of the state were deep into Kohberger's phone data and found that he had passively attached to the Mad Greek Wi-Fi, but it doesn't even mean that he was there. And even if he ate there, it doesn't mean that he ran into Maddie or Xana. So this doesn't conflict with something that law enforcement has said, but that's a little more depth about it. But again, Gilbertson had spoken at that presser, as did Payne, that they just never found any connection, nothing that they could point to that they would have spoken to at trial. We've long known that they didn't, and through court records, including Bryan Kohberger's defense, that they didn't have the name until December 19th. And there's a lot of conspiracies out there and a lot of questions about that. But you've got to think, if they have that name earlier than December 19th, they're out in Pennsylvania right away, or they don't let him leave Washington. So I think people really need to sort of take a step back and think about that. It's ironic because Kohberger had been let go from his TA job actually on December 19th. It actually has Dollinger speaking to the fact that they lied to us. They lied to us when we asked them specifically about police officers around the community, asking specifically about K-bar knives.
Yeah.
And at the time, they said, well, we were asking specifically about, fixed blade knives generally, but we actually finally had Dollinger saying, yeah, that was just information we didn't feel comfortable releasing at the time. But
and these 500 plus pages of documents.
Let's remember right now, Dollinger is the chief of police in Moscow. And he's already been caught in lying to the public. Do the math. Think about that, because you're about ready to hear some information on national news. It gets better.
To the investigation, we're getting more details about just how menacing and awkward Bryan Kohberger was to women. During police interviews, days after Kohberger was arrested, a Washington State University professor said she warned colleagues, quote, "Mark my word, I work with predators. If we give him a PhD, that's the guy that in that many years when he is a professor, we will hear he is harassing, stalking, and sexually abusing his students at wherever university he ended." She also told police, quote, "One day a female grad student came running into her office crying, and the student said that she had just left class because of an interaction with Kohberger. Among the descriptions from colleagues, students, and faculty were creepy, condescending toward women, arrogant, angry, and had built up rage. The criminology department received numerous complaints about Kohberger, who was a teaching assistant as he worked towards his PhD in Pullman.
Now, let's think about this for a moment. You don't think Jenkins knew any of this stuff, do you? John, you think the chief, who their guys accidentally forgot to send the tip over, had any idea about the name Bryan Kohberger after finding his car, running his name, looking at his driver's license?
I would think that it would be impossible for me to believe that somebody didn't look into this. And as far as I'm concerned, the cops themselves may have already been plugged in on him, the street cops. He may have already had a reputation there at the university of the old mechanical alarm clock that's been wound one too many times.
Yep.
And so he may have been far better known there than anybody's going to cop to.
Yeah, I think what is becoming clear is what they call civil exposure.
And negligent liability, negligent retention.
Yeah, that's a real problem, because it gets better.
did discipline him, putting him on probation and making him attend sexual harassment training. Some even thought he was about to be fired from his TA job.
Our understanding was that he was let go just prior to his trip back to Pennsylvania.
Was he having trouble with women?
So he's got him getting let go before he goes to Pennsylvania. This isn't the guy that was talking about the knife and lying about it, was it, Karen?
Well, it really was. And I want to remind everybody, the dates. Okay. December 12th is the date that BK left Pullman, Washington with his dad in the car and drove back home. Do I have that correct, Chris?
Yeah.
December 12th.
Yeah.
And he was stopped by Indiana State Police. Remember, there were 2 stops on the freeway, and I believe that was the 15th.
Which he says aren't related. They're not correlated in any way. Okay. That's what the chief said. Yeah.
Right. Okay. But my point is, Chief Dellinger just told the media that Kohberger was let go before he left campus. And that's not true, because he wasn't identified through the IGG until December 19th. And when that phone call came in, that's when Washington State University acted and said, well, we better fire him today. Same day, he's the established known suspect. And it's my understanding FBI from that moment on had him under surveillance up until the December 30th arrest. So Mr. Dellinger doesn't have his facts right again.
Quinky dink, John?
They may have actually kept him out of the information loop. I mean, there's a chance he was being used by people above him. I mean, yeah, there's certainly possibilities he's not being honest, but there's also the chance that he's being fed bad information. I don't know enough about the internal dynamics of the department, but the other thing that occurs to me is that he leaves Idaho on December the 12th. They fire him on the 19th. I'm wondering just how long the paperwork had been completed, because as I speculate, his name was percolating throughout Washington State University. So I think that they had that termination paperwork ready for a while.
I agree, and I think this chief knew it at that time. He was a captain, okay. And when the chief left, who was during this situation, Fry, by the way, Fry went out. He went to run for sheriff, and he lost. But when he left, Dellinger picked up the reins here, and now he's on the public relations tour here. And watch how he carefully punts back to WSU and their internal investigation on Bryan Kohberger. Watch this.
And was he being aggressive with women, inappropriate? Was there any of that, or was it just he wasn't doing the job?
I don't know exactly. I'm sure that's a personnel issue with the WSU folks, but there were some.
I don't want to answer that question. So let's play some ping pong. Go ahead, John.
It's personnel. We can know if it's sexual harassment. It's not a personnel issue. If it crosses the line to being crimes, calling it a personnel issue has become the great stone wall that they all hide behind nowadays.
Yeah, because you can't get it, allegedly, unless the family hires a really good civil attorney and they go after the communication, which, by the way, they'll get in April of 2026, according to their policies, but it gets even better.
Talks about that type of behavior.
This is the officer who located the car. He is now a supervisor, and he investigates sex crimes. This is the policies that that officer was supposed to follow the night he found the car. Let's see, decisions and actions. Decisions and actions, by the way, these are WSU's policies from their policy and procedure manual at the law enforcement agency there. Decisions and actions of members shall be based on available facts as they reasonably appear at the time. A BOL for one white Hyundai Elantra involved in a quadruple homicide. Members shall rely on their experience, training, and reasonable judgment to take lawfully and morally justified action within the limits of their authority and in good faith as defined by policy, statute, and judicial interpretation. Hey, Sarge, yeah, I've got me a white Elantra right here, and it has a name connected to it by the name of Bryan Kohberger. In fact, I'm going to look at his driver's license and see that he also has bushy eyebrows. Competence 38.5.1. Members shall maintain sufficient competency to properly perform their duties and assume responsibility for their positions. You, sir, are promoted. Oh, wait. Incompetence may be demonstrated by a lack of pattern. Let's see. Requesting outside assistance. If an assistance is needed from another agency, i.e. a BOL, the member requested assistance should, if practical, first notify a supervisor. Hey, we got this BOL here. We found a car here. It's a white Hyundai Elantra. The one thing you'll always find here on the interview room, everybody, is the receipts. Okay? I bring the receipts. The handling member or supervisor should direct assisting personnel to where they are needed and to whom they should report when they arrive. Hey, Sarge, I got the car here. I'm standing right here with a white Elantra. The requesting member should arrange for appropriate radio communication capabilities. One of our FOIA is we want the radio traffic. Not a problem. You can have it in April of 2026. No problem. Okay. Capabilities if necessary and available. So the communications can be coordinated between assisting personnel, i.e., John, I got a white Elantra over here. You got a minute? Can you shoot over here? Car to car, channel 3. Okay.
Yeah. Call the tip line.
Yeah.
Said no officer ever investigating a quadruple homicide.
Yeah. If you don't have the number, I can give it to you.
I couldn't have asked for that answer. Oh, what are the reporting requirements? Hey, John, I got the car over here. I'm going to recall the tip line. Incidents or of outside assistance or law enforcement activities that are not documented in a crime report shall be documented in a general case report or as directed by the shift supervisor. Hey, Karen, you can get that report in April of 2026. Not a problem. Not an issue, not a problem. Sarge, I'll call the tip line. Oh, wait. Here's one. Vehicles related to criminal investigations. Sarge, I got one. It's a BOL from the agency right next door. And you know, the one the chief talked to the other chief and told us that we had a quadruple homicide. And you probably told us at briefing tonight that we're still looking for that white Hyundai. Okay, remember the Bolo that went out. Okay. An officer should tow a vehicle when probable cause exists to believe the vehicle has been stolen or used in the commission of a felony. Hey, knock, knock, knock. Are you Mr. Kohberger? Well, yes, I am. Do you own that car out there? Because we're looking for a car that matches that description, and we're trying to eliminate it from a crime. In fact, a felony. Can we have a little conversation and cooperation here? Can we just talk? Okay.
This is another great point that you're raising. This is another question for WSU Police Chief. Hey, Chief, according to Section 502.7, BK's car should have been towed that night. Why wasn't it done? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, are you telling me it's against, you just went against your own code here?
Department policy.
Department policy, whatever this is?
Well, and here's the other missing link with this. This should have been a call over to Moscow PD. You get your investigator over here right now. This is not, hey, if you want to come over, this is, this vehicle is here. You need to come over and look at it. You need to make a decision if we're going to hook it and take it. So my question is why wasn't Moscow PD called? And I'm not talking about the tip line. I'm talking about dispatch contacting dispatch and saying one of our officers, and we've done this any number of times.
Every dispatcher listening,
every
dispatcher listening, if you're in the chat, put in the chat here how many times you have done this when an officer has a vehicle that matches a description of a Bolo. I didn't mean to interrupt, John.
Yeah,
but I think we have some really great.
We do have some dispatchers here. Tell us the number of times, and because if it was my case, if I was the case agent for this quadruple homicide, you call me with whatever you have. So I wouldn't go, grouchy. Oh, hey, you woke me up. You've got a possible vehicle, driving time from Moscow. You can expect me there in 20 minutes. Just throw some clothes on and I'll be over there before you know it.
And Chris, talk for a minute about, on a crime like this, that vehicle is what you've taught us is a secondary crime scene.
That's right.
Crime scene number 1 is 1122 King Road. The secondary crime scene is the vehicle, BK's car. That's how important this was. And he had till December 19th plus to scrub it, clean it, bleach it, etc., etc. So tell us again, just remind people the importance of that car wasn't just an escape vehicle. It was crime scene number 2.
2. That's right. You could have had a tremendous amount of transfer that we'll never know. There's just, I don't want to completely go out there, but we just don't know what we don't know at this point based on, just this little, hey, Sarge, I found something, and John go and call the tip line. Okay. It gets better. Are you ready? We're almost done. Okay. You can't make this stuff up. Listen. Okay, everybody, you've seen the video now that's out, them searching the house. Law and Crime dropped it. If you haven't seen it, get over there and watch it. This is the sergeant who went into the house, and he picks up the phone while going down those steps, and I think he says WSU will be impacted, I think. So he's calling his supervisor, I'm assuming, because he's on the phone and he's a supervisor. So he's calling somebody above him, and he is telling them the other university also needs to be woken up here. And so that's code for, we got a murderer on the loose, all hands on deck for the PD. Let's watch it again and listen again. You can go back and listen to it for yourself. But I think all of this hoo-ha around everything, okay, i.e., well, you know, our guys, we didn't turn it into the tip line. We didn't know this. We didn't know that. Bull. I call baloney. Because we got an officer in the crime scene calling somebody. Who he's talking to? WSU will be impact, I think. I can't make out the ED. I hear WSU. I hear will be, it sounds like impact, I think. That's up to you to decide. You can go listen to it for yourself, enhance it, okay? But if that is the case, they haven't even cleared the house yet. And he's on the phone with a supervisor saying the other university also needs to be aware of what's going on, which would be appropriate protocol.
Absolutely.
And for them to keep dodging this tells me that the administrators at the universities were in charge and determining what goes out, what comes in. And you heard the chief in the very beginning say, yeah, they're going to send the alert. I'm going to send the alert. And that's probably what that sergeant is doing, is saying, look, this is big. This is big. And he's letting the administration know this is really big. But here's where now the line gets drawn. In a crime like this, as big as this was and is, the university had none reason to be involved in any decision of this law enforcement agency. Here's the reason why. It could have been a student. And guess what? It was a student. Bryan Kohberger was at WSU. And what did they do? You had Captain Barrett at 2:00 in the afternoon go over and meet with the president of the University of Idaho, Scott Green. Well, what if it was a student, a staff member, a janitor? Anything is possible in homicide. You don't go over and sit down with them and say, hey, we need your help. And then allow them to dictate what the conversation's going to be about. That's how you end up with answers that make no sense in the very beginning. That's how you end up with post answers now, post homicide, where you start hearing supervisors not tell you the truth because they're towing the party line.
You collected numerous devices, but you collected an active phone that he had. What did you find on that phone?
Well, the phone, it just provided us and matched up everything that we mostly already had. You know, we'd already conducted search warrants and had a lot of his activity, a lot of his phone usage. So when we actually had the physical phone and we were able to do the extract of it, you know, we didn't gain a lot from it. You know, we know that he was clearing a lot of his devices and wiping things from them. We know that he used VPNs. So, But we also did find screenshots and pictures of news coverage.
On his Android device, we used Celebrite Physical Analyzer software to just parse the information.
What else did you uncover in your digital investigation, Heather?
Lots of browser searching for serial killers, as I mentioned with you previously, an obsession with himself. So researching serial killers and then immediately taking selfies to replicate what he had read. So that picture of him in the black hoodie was taken after researching Ted Bundy. And in that research, it was Ted Bundy in that black hoodie, and he replicated the photo.
Okay, so that's the bottom line. Bryan Kohberger is left in a cell now with the ability to tell his story. Would you agree with that, John?
Yes, I would agree if he elects to share his story.
Yeah. And the law enforcement agencies have the ability now to correct any errors that were ever made and clear up some of these inconsistencies without just feeding it to, talking points. The talking points don't work. The talking points don't work. Okay? They just don't work. Because until the truth comes to the surface in totality, okay, my gut tells me they saw the name and, like Lisa said, it blew their mind. And to your point, John, the paperwork was already in motion. And they just conveniently happened to arrest him on the exact same day they fire him. What a
I'm certain there wasn't a heads up. Oh, by the way, we're arresting him. So we don't know what levels of communication were going on behind the scenes. I believe in a lot of things. I don't believe in that level of coincidence. So they knew.
Karen, what say you?
Well, I think they're serving up a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense, doesn't add up. It doesn't pass the common sense test post-incident, as you like to say, post-homicide. And, I always like to end on a note for the victims' families, just to remember them. They're still devastated. They're still dealing with unbearable grief. And they want answers. I know they want answers. And, we would just continue to keep them front and center and in our hearts and prayers. And, to balance it out, let's always remember the victims: Kaylee Gonzalez, Maddie Mogan, Santa Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you, everybody. Go get John's book, Beach Blanket Bedlam, on Amazon. John, thank you for being here this evening. And,
thank you, Chris. Thank you, Karen, and thank all of your wonderful viewers. Some incredibly prescient comments here. And again, we need to remember the victims, and perhaps from this event, the things we've identified, if they can set egos aside, let's turn it into a learning experience.
Yeah, unfortunately. Most definitely. Aloha, everybody. See you on the next one.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, facing Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll